Le cœur se do khu ye hi o e ta ple mi we hi la le ye o ple penny to put the pui to we mi ma the yi do ta twa we do ma o ye hi po le ka se khu si ka ti ba kina pe ti no ba na chobu Melasati Kina.
The overcast Andaman sky draped the sea in tones of grey and silver on the day Machi and Popo had set out in their little dinghy. It was a perfect day for adventure. They didn't really mind the gloomy weather. The gentle pulse of the sea rocked their boat to and fro. They rowed for 6 nights and 7 days. Whenever they felt too tired to go on, they stopped for rest on a nearby island. They were in no hurry. It was on the 7th day that they came upon a vast and beautiful island. Surrounded by shallow, transparent bays, the sun-drenched island was rich in flora and fauna. The nearby reefs were brimming with all the fish that one could catch. Spellbound, they decided that a community should flourish on this beautiful island. They rode back home to tell everyone of their discovery and returned with 42 families. Honoring these adventurous, fun-loving women, the island was soon called by a portmanteau of their names. Thus, it became the island of Chippo. The story of Chippo is also the story of a hill tribe who remain resilient in the face of all adversities. Irrawaddy is a river of memories. It was from the basins of this river that the members of the Karen tribe began moving to the Andaman Islands in the 1920s. It was a journey of hope for a new life. The story of Karens in these islands begins with the arrival of Reverend Dr. Ignatius Marshall, who paid a visit to the Chief Commissioner, Major Ferrar, in 1924. Ferrar had asked Marshall if he could find some hard-working hill tribes to be brought in as labourers to clear the forests. Marshall was a principal of the Karen Theological Seminary in Burma at the time and didn't have to think twice before recommending the Karens for the job.
The clipe, the Kato Quigia Kisi Yonine, Amenyane Yapu Traluji, Aweda, Paba, Takaso, Le Maxine de Amimiada, Satuo, Le Wale, Ole Andaman, Padotagani, Aweda Quahilo Takaso Dito. While le copio the pa, Paganya put the pa, le at the odo, Talotacle, le at the odo, Siopuel, le a o lot city the pa, me edo hello matale ko andamaine.
North Andaman A school teacher in the village is a granddaughter of Pastor Lu Jie, who brought the very first Karen families to these islands.
Aweda hekolo tini lo le tani ho ye pu aweda le hakri wa tidpa wa nyo tidpa le kopio le alo o tapita mat o le o lot tidpa.
Thus, in 1925, the first 12 Karen families came to the thick forests of Maya 85 nautical miles from the capital town of Port Blair. They first settled in a place which they fondly called Webi, the hidden city in their mother tongue.
Da penene ye pu tra luji me pale akeko kek na da ye pi se ko aweda mas ye pu le tapita ma pu pe aweti de pa hello le talo ini awet de pa tapita mani mi weda pale a clo shet po le mi weda ti wa ti de pa ni lo da penene pedo aweda hi wet ki di to ko ta o mi di mi da ration ti de pa le pwe ni lo
mi party pale e tamita khu ta khuta pho khota do ni we pa ta sa lo ta kwi ba da ba pdu mi hio hokku mi teo de sini do si ale ni we ti pha ni te we da le pa pa nyo ni lo da hokku pho the da khu pi do the pi le pa ka khu lo asu wo ni lo.
This is Saw Saitha, friend, philosopher, guide, and the spiritual leader of this little Karen village.
Papa kanyo ti de phane mi pwa ti de phale o ta la to la ne phe pa pa ni awe ti de phane uwe do awe ti papa mi ku yo lo le thik la ni de ke lo nya la awe ti phane ngo klu ti ngo nya ti ngo thi ti do awe ti de pha pa mi ti lo le to kha kla ni awe ti pha ke lo di tai u ti di tho ti wa ti do awe ti de pha.
Saw Josen was a young boy when he boarded the ship. In less than a century, the Karen population has risen to 3,000, scattered over 8 villages in Maya Bandar. Karmatang 9, Karmatang 10, Lucknow, Latau, Webi, Deopur, Borang, and Chipo. It wasn't just poverty and unemployment that drove the Karens to these islands. For more than a century, the Karens have faced severe repression at the hands of the Burmese government. Much of the Karen community now live in refugee camps along the Burma-Thailand border. Units like the Indian National Liberation Army have been fighting against the government for decades, demanding greater autonomy for the Karen state. In 2019, 108 people were displaced from their homes in Chowchi Township due to fighting between the Myanmar military and the KNLA. Since 2015, almost all international attention and aid has shifted from the Karen community in light of the developing Rohingya crisis, presuming that there is peace in other ethnic areas.
Nimiti Rubo, Sodabo, He, Dopayot, the Gani, Hetoni, Aveni, Natabamati, who saw one Mamati, Pio, Amnicone, Pion, Ani di Uto, the A, Dole, Canyopu, Cadusu, Te Dole, Canyopu, Tirpani, Caketo Bapadu Papa, Dawetirpani, Sotaniba, Paganyopu, Tirpa, Do, Pami Tirpasiconini, Pamia Doploni, Awetircani, Caploedale. Mom meet me ma so the noni with the eva do with the panini, 3 dalini, Paganyopu, Tirpani, Bahi, Lomi Lopra, Pilo Hokudobi, the Taloga, do Paganyo, put the panini, away Tirpanini, 2 away Tirpani Bacoba Kenny do, with the Paba Ulito Club Basatraki, or with the pa ne deep me, who that take to the panini. Pami Sugumuni, Pami Copale, Nani Pioni, Pepite Eva, Pamina Cagnolo, Pamina Cagnoti, Papagano, Puti Pani, Pataba Mathadu, Pamia Dolla Onini, Pamia do Mabadu Saunini, Din Mima, Namima That Tony, where I may clean doodle, Nala Niva. Basa Nemia Dolani, Nakba Mania, Nemini make you pay there, and man at Pala. Ta do yua hello o le pakla ke so we ma kwe a bata plom o sa chale na chi.
1941, the midst of World War II. Subhash Chandra Bose escapes India and flees to Germany. Determined to defeat the Brits, he joins forces with the Axis powers. After meeting Hitler, he goes from Germany to Japan. He revamps the INA and aids Japan in their steady encroachment of Southeast Asia. Japan invades the Andaman Islands and unleashes a 2-year reign of terror.
我が陸海軍部隊は遠くインド洋上アンダマン列島に軍を進め東部インドベンガル湾の使命を制す。
그래서 그 삶을 집안 짓고야 집안 짓고 와야 섬유요.
Nor Mariam was only a little girl when the Japanese arrived in the islands.
You play the Wibi, the Payan was seen in Japan header, but to Maleto Japan, to the Nuni Chiblo, and Nuni Chiblo, the West to Luba, the law. The Balia look horror that this is Saturday will be the deluded. Clear the hill, take way.
These Japanese soldiers who left a brutal legacy of murder and rape wherever they invaded took an unexpected liking to the hardworking, gentle Karens.
Japan to my own Tawano would have not be all. What 12 is raw, morning, what by the money that blow, by the poems me, there were cleaning too.
ปัจจุบันสิ่งมีเยอะเลยเมื่อนำแหละ เมื่อน่าดำนี่แหละ
왜 이발레 올려 누가 다니 이발레 계속 그냥.
แกสกับยาน
qua bây giờ mấy số đó cái gì cái gì chủ yếu trong này yêu là cái gì cái gì nó chủ yếu trong này
เดี๋ยวเว้จะปานนี่แต่ลูกพักคุยกันบ้านเจ้าเว้พักคุยกันมันตีเจ้าว่ามาสิอยู่แล้ว
突如アンダマン島ポートブレアに暁の急上陸を敢行
แล้วพอดีจะมาตัววันยอดฐานโนดมีวันยอดวุฒิบัตรฐานโนดมีเลือดสู้
นักไต่ยันเนี่ย
也是吧
แกไต่
啊是呀卡草那拉别起上头，秋一木一个，可以入给入路啊。嘿，在山路，我卡给是，我可给了他为你，我可给了他为你查拉卡塔。嘿，在山路，阿里嘎多。ako ni odete kara isikushiro tomo ni shinuki jiko no umato seme susumu maya kawa to tatashina nichi ga kayo kino to shita toshika ne kyo kanine no Ami fine kani pu fine pikulu ne Burma feels the way up on the sea. The sea is the Japan.
Japan dia nak giswa.
Japan
dia nak giswa. Kuatena giswa.
Japan. Japan是quoi呀
？点啥？Japan dia nak giswa. Kuatena giswa.
Japan
kuatena giswa. 点啥
？Kuatena ya giswa. Ye na pa aklo. Ye agani koni mi sakasi. Balo ye ba malo ye ba le sai chozo.你小时候我是有啥用的，我老我就没有个破开壳，也把这烧。
แกถ้าไต่เรียบร้อยเดี๋ยวมันไต่หล่น
没啦。
อะไรใจมากกว่านี่
哦，ねえあなた私寝ましょう私と寝ましょう上等よ。
It wasn't just the Japanese that these Karens became friendly with. In this melting pot of different cultures that these islands had become, the indigenous tribes often go unacknowledged. They remained isolated for almost 30,000 years until the arrival of Europeans in the 18th century. This was a prelude to centuries of massacres, exploitation, and disease, which would soon decimate these thriving populations. And all of this has naturally made these tribes wary of foreigners in their lands. One among these is the Great Andamanese. This fierce tribe, however, grew unexpectedly close with the Karens.
Lenya kodomo, you play a pain in a coffee or you tell it to see you play a pay there. You play a Yasawo Chichi Lunine. Ya pali nya khon mo jingli wete tapasu wete wo le nya khon ni wa re te lo wa wete ni ko lo wa het tho de ko lo kha ko lo wa le kli de ko lo wa piang khai le klu no ti pha ji lo ti de chi chi ni Koloaso ne we kolatu poji kolatu po ne ani tabatu tene ne haklios hane lu wa khone ne ye pa le thi de he chi ko do me mani mata the ways on a no casisita bele hale to go alinya kone tapatu de yamiti say plilo patele tapatu de ka ozi yamuta take one kozi the miti but believe a toloki chichi gonna yapane ta he ulishi de go where the way on it bele ule to go de pu lo pu ta pu ba sao ta ba phin ni Tiku jamala to akpatiku jamala teidum tu era lebo ke tu tredek mo gora ke tu tredek mo gora ke buro ko karka ngokong ko ngaram biru ki plat loro pat lat lewe to ke se chi fu yo o re ya kwa ne ta fa su ngo de kai ye do sigo ta wei ya ko ma wa di le ne ya pu ha pu ta le o si ta ko allo ya pu ba de ai ya khi e o to bo a e do ya de ye shi ni o de yo khu o phi ni Hello, Hudi. Chini seni ya. Yo hui chini seni ne de yi de.
In 1969, all of the great Andamanese were made to move to Strait Island by the government. Saw Pan Ong hasn't seen his wife or children ever since.
Putili to look at Naya Pipi Tatenawa. A cane, Wakanyola, Mulipalane, Kasaya Hiloli, two Lisili Payuana, Lituli Sili Payuane, Lomakui Hune, a cane, Palek Iwakwane, Mia. Pakasala, Mue Lotulo Utaganmona. A letane, Hutatane, you are third and Utahone Titia. Pakasa. Puksa, tasosika no, you are third me, you are the holo. A hoodie, Pakababu or Bao, Pakabasu or Pakabamatabata, ne, me. Pamupadalano, a letane hone, you are third hone, me Paksa, Puksa, tasosika ne, Pakaba. Dukana could leave Pakabamatabata, Pakabamutabata, Pobuno.
Papakanyotically. Away the part, Dulo, Tata Kukiso, Clemanilo, Mary Dileni, away the part, the people poo at Atholoba, Poetry Pa, Lituli Yuari, Tepianipoa, Le Modu Padu Tipa, away the Pani, Navedale, Litu, Liuale, Kasaya Hipa, Lituli Si, Pasatana Kini, Pakanyot Park, Keba, Hota the Loma Cueda, the Willow Kini, away the Pani, Petata Kukiso, Heveda, Letra Judata, a Sogatoni. Tata Kukiso head to Veda, a secretary of Papaganyo, Tulo, Tata Kukiso, Crema, Miridile, the Sosini, a coup with a tutu, no Lituli you are, no Lituli Sydney, a coup with a tutu, Hotado, Ovetri Pani, Tulo Tata Kukisodo, Kedo Kripu, a Hotado, Poetri Pasico, Le Cotope Puni, Pemeda, Bloody Kripu, Honoradeni, no, no Le Pipu, no Atatholoba, Poetri Pa. Siba Poeta Pale, Kasayua, Mijuataga Ho, no, you are Thurga, Mijuataga Ho, a Hotadonini, Atatawi, Atatholoba, Poeta Pasiconi, Uedado, Los Vedale, Ta Sector Kali, Pusuli Sunilo.
In 1827, Christian missionaries traveled to the jungles of Burma to bring the gospel to the Karen tribe. As they began teaching from the Bible, they were astounded. The Karens already worshipped a deity whose name is Yahweh. They had a detailed creation story which bore a striking resemblance to the biblical Eden narrative. According to the Karen myth of creation, God has created the heavens and the earth, and then created the first man, Saw. It is from his rib that the first woman, Noah, was created as well. But unlike the Genesis, the woman was not to serve simply as a companion to man. They were regarded as equals in their own right. Saw and Noah received the breath of life at the very same time. Many legends establish the origins of the Karen people in Babylon, from whence they are believed to have embarked on their long centuries of migration in 2234 BC. When the pages of world history are turned to this age, we find ourselves in Mesopotamia, between the rivers Euphrates and Tigris. From here on out, they are said to have travelled across the span of Central and Southeast Asia. Crossing the desert sands of Turkestan, the remote steppes of Mongolia, through the ancient mountains of Tibet, and the vast hilly plateaus of Yunnan. Before finally reaching present-day Burma around 3,000 years ago. Christianity, they believe, was deeply rooted long before the arrival of Adoniram Judson. Although animist beliefs and values have their influence, Christian purity is deeply embedded. This does, however, result in the occasional dilemma. This is Jackson, and this is Amu. They were just caught eloping and were brought back home. Now, here's the problem. The village does care for the two of them and aren't opposed to their marriage. However, they still did commit a sin in the eyes of God. How do they go about fixing this? Well, the solution was rather straightforward. Conduct their wedding outside the church. The villagers came together and put up a lush, beautiful venue. Now that their nominal punishment was sorted, this long-awaited wedding finally happened. The whole community gathered to bless the bride and the groom. Christianity has blended in quite nicely with the Karen traditions of yore. After marriage, the groom comes and stays with the bride's family, and the children, regardless of gender, have equal property rights. In fact, the Karens do have their own traditional ways of finding love. The bamboo dance is a venue for youngsters to meet and fall in love. Their festive occasions often form a synthesis between their pious Christian beliefs and their warm, lively tribal culture. For Karens, the oceans are a driving force, both in nature and within themselves. The feeling of communion right from the mother's womb. Its call, irresistible. The ocean is a place where she feels at home. The Karens have an incredibly unique method of canoe building. They carve a dugout canoe first from the trunk of the tongpine, tingam or lalchini tree. It looks almost ridiculously small at first glance. But this is where the magic happens. These hardwood trunks placed over a fire become unexpectedly elastic. And as these trunks are pulled at from both ends, they get bigger and bigger. Once they are reinforced with planks, they are incredibly strong and sturdy. In just a day or so, a brand new canoe is ready to sail. And she is in good hands too, for the Karens are master navigators.
Linya ko pemi ha klio le pole bu le tiko no klao. One ba ha klio ne ba klio linya ko ne dami to ta to manako da mi le ha da ha le sho do ha le sho do ni do klonya de ha klo le sho do le khe bà đồ lo cái mi lệ sĩ tập lâu mà na khó nên nó mà qua nữa cái này bây giờ tập lâu phết này có bà qua lấy xả đi xả này lệ thọ quá cái mi đó hà lư mà na khó lấy ta chích lao này bây mi hà này Lami kapo ne, lao ne he thosi thole, ti thosi ale, pakwa le la de, pele lo se krio de pele dolo kri pene ka ne wa no wa kri bo lo, ha wa le no wa ne, o ne ba do lo, ase ka ti pele ne, le pakwa sa ka so ne mo. Sakso ne udli sakso da pa le ko da pa la sakso ne sa ne u khu ple sa khu ple ne he tho de le alo chi ko ne ma da di da so ko blu ne he tho ba Sagasor mi wilo kamluni. Oh nene mukisi walo. Oh nene namatinya.
Depths and mysteries of the ocean have always fascinated the Karens. Men and women alike go for fishing, diving and hunting. They're experts in skin diving and can go up to 20 meters into the depths without additional gear. However, unknown to them, their mastery over the waves was to face its greatest test one fateful morning.
What's this side? Tsunami.
Get in! We are the sea minute tsunami head off. Tsunami head on it. You TV tsunami basatana kene ya me le pa nyopo. The learning head of pad aji pado jilo. Basamone Petter county tsunami head on it. Head of akaludi doni ka boy yudi. Sichit county head of learning padu patoji lo. Padu patoji ni ya kwa learner it a play to pure.
That wave is a good 15-20 feet tall.
The Punicani learn it a salo, learn it pagido. Sichitini yachida yeti per jetini yeti waratini a metani nya or it a koi. Nya or the corder, ye let tail order, you sell the jetty capa. You said a sichim siloda, you had your order. Punicani wahila mailer, Pagaba Pinludi, the Magawa Kutapu, while Lucy Tapu. Yai ta kwale ta mai, kwale ye padu ni, ni to akabo kapu de ye mapu kabo. Ye mapu kabo de lote. Di kabo kapu sai ni ye mapu kabo ba satanaki, le kabo ko ni ye mapu pua takya ni siluga. Takya ni siluga ni Talaga kelo tadi tu ni kita tinya. Mulai saya ta masa ho, dah leg saya ta ho, ye mapu maple apa thani ye sibli sifu bag saya te. Kuata tiada dah soya di tu saya te ni ke saya te kan mapu tale ti dan mapu tale tau ni, nanti sibli sifu ya.
While the Karens who came to these islands are Baptist Christians, 2/3 of the world's Karen population are Buddhists. However, both their myths and beliefs are so remarkably similar, it points to a common lineage, to a much earlier animist origin. In both of these myths of creation, there is one omnipresent, all-powerful deity named Yawa. Moreover, the Buddhist Karens also share belief in a lost golden book or book of knowledge. The laws of this book separated them from God's path and was led astray. This recurring image persists across Karen folklore. Orphans who are lost, who are deprived and insecure, holding on until they're uplifted by Yewa once more. The Buddhist and Christian Karens dream of a united Karen nation, where God would appear in the form of a king and restore the reign of peace. This is what keeps their culture, traditions, and language alive.
Papui Bama, Yarala, Wataha, Lile Papa Oke Ime, Kanyoli Koti, Dapwe Tele Fifi.
Pawe kanyo puti di pani, pa chibu koda pawe do tuba lo soda di pa koda we tuba. Pamni khula we ti di pani bata sotani o ba nama po. Basatna kini ni pawe ti di pani pu do pa chibu ko pa national anthem mi weda chiko tathawi do pu do notia u do pata setala le papadu do panotia ni pa wito o phe sakto le pama kanyo ni to zo di to pa kanyo pu khala le hokudo bi phe ut pula la ni ber pa kasi nya ki anotia chi kota tase do chi kota tabi ni no do tino ba phipu te pha le hello we da le copy le North Andaman play puni do awe te pha ni tino thoba ba kha chi ko le hello we da le u le ke se khu do sai ni ta ta tai phu di si we da le ko se do khu ye hi o we te ple mi we hi khila le ye o ple phe ni thu phu si pui to we Mima, the ye do the twa we do ma. O ye po, look a circle, see katiba kina. Pay tino, bana tobu, mula sati kina. Paputa putano no, lewleti ko yi ugat pasikoni, sato edale. Atakli takto ti pha do pawe pha pa sort of tibu ko ni pa sort of tani ba ho palo pri lo pra ho ta ro ni pa loss in transit kopyo pawe pha ni pa clear ni kamal ni wa do pa le udale ta lo tapu da la basatna ke pata seta la ti pha ni pa clear ni lo
Johnny